Hello, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. I think that there is a lot of work today to be done, and I want to share some thoughts about it. So, today's project is this one. There is a system in CockroachDB that is responsible for logging. That most people know about, which is logging events to files like cockroach.log when a server starts. If there is a client command, that system is also responsible for printing messages out on the terminal, but more or less is what people expect. And then in addition to this, CockroachDB also separately maintains a log of what I have decided to call notable events. These are so-called important events for a cluster that also gets this benefit of being displayed somewhat more prominently on the web UI. Now, that is a history, and that has been there for a very long time, since 2016 at the very least. Now, in addition to this, we have Cockroach Cloud now, where for completely different reasons, we would like to find those important events, those notable events in a network log collector. The idea thereof is that we have security needs. We want to be able to detect when things are not going according to plan in a Cockroach Cloud cluster and connect the events of every cluster to a automated disruption service. So that's called in security terms intelligent intrusion detection system, IDS. And in those systems, it's not so important to know exactly what the structure of the message is, but they should have some structure so that machine learning algorithms can apply and treat different fields as separate variables that the learning algorithms can model separately. So today, unfortunately, we don't really have network logging. That is something that we worked on this stream previously. So there is this PR from a long while ago, well, actually a couple of weeks ago, that introduces FluentD compatibility in CockroachDB that we can later use for integrating over a network logger. That's one thing. The other thing that this PR is doing, which is actually kind of orthogonal, is introducing JSON output formats, so that the entries are written using JSON in the output sinks, wherever that might be. And in fact, the way this PR is implemented is that the format can be configured for any sink, including the file sync. So even in an environment where the user is still happy to use file reporting or maybe filing the events to the standard error stream, then they can enable JSON and then get structure logs, and then that will make it much easier to integrate with external systems. Now, the way that this PR that you're seeing here, which is a different one project from the one we were looking at earlier, well, it's a more specific one, is that it transforms the external logging payload that we had until now into a JSON payload. And the way that it's restricted is that the external logging events are very simple. They are actually just flat text. There is just a message field with a string inside. And what this PR is doing here is just add some additional metadata around that flat message, like the current timestamp, maybe the logging channel, and a couple of other things that are common to all the logging events. And that is a problem because what I just said is that we really want to distinguish the parts of a logging message into additional structure, and this PR here is not achieving that. It's still considering the entire payload of a logging event as a single string, and we want more fine-grained data than that. So what this issue is about here is to productionize this what we called event log mechanism in the past, and that is actually a notable log mechanism, and ensures that the structure that is available in that mechanism is also available on the external log. And then one of the steps that is missing here is to modify this PR to recognize the structure from those events and also integrate them directly in the JSON output. So basically pass them through. So there is actually an alternate step here, which we might be doing at the same moment or maybe separately, I don't know yet, and that will be to ensure that we have a new system since CockroachDB 20.2 that adds redaction markers for sensitive information inside payloads. And so if we start to have more fine-grained structure in output logging events, we probably want to have those redaction markers placed on individual fields as opposed to the entire JSON payload as a whole. So that's that. We are going to look into it in a minute. There is another thing that we probably want to do as well, and that is to transform the single string tags payload of events into separate JSON fields. So today, if you look at this PR here, it will also combine all the logging tags, which are like KV pairs that give some context information to logging details, and it compiles them into a single string. And that's, again, actually forgetting about the structure of the values. So we probably like to keep the structure in the JSON output. So that also needs to happen. So that might be, those two steps here might be an additional change into the same PR, so we can continue to pile commits on the same PR, or maybe make separate commits. We'll see. And then there is an update to be made to RFC. So I'm not entirely sure yet whether we can achieve all these steps today, but we need to make some progress. And all this is because Cockroach Cloud is getting more and more ready to be available to the masses, and we really want to have this logging in place before bad things can happen, so to speak. So that's that. All right, so we are probably going to get started. However, I do want to share for the record a notion that I came to this morning on the bike as I was going to the post office. A lot of irrelevant contexts. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, so I found myself this morning waking up early. And this does not happen very usually because I'm usually a late sleeper. And I was wondering what was going on. And I had at some moment a realization, which was a bit mildly disturbing, that I was excited about this project. So why is this mildly disturbing? Is because from a technical challenge perspective, this is a project that is very straightforward. It's not simple, but all the steps that need to happen are pretty much clear from the get-go. And so from a intellectual challenge perspective, the real constraint here is to be as efficient as possible in realizing all these steps so that they happen quickly and without compromising on quality. But it's not like it's a complex algorithmic challenge or maybe some things that would require a lot of analysis before it gets achieved. And therefore, I had a doubt. I mean, the truth is, I actually prefer myself to work on items that require a little bit more analysis up front. So this actually, I like to think about myself as someone who gets excited more about in-depth challenges. And here, I have a project that is more or less executing a list of steps that are individually not super challenging. The challenge is just more about the productivity around it. And so why would I wake up early and excited about this? So that is what took me at least 15 minutes to figure out. And so I had a notion. The notion is that this project is possibly exciting because it is a facility that serves as translation between two subsystems, or 2 systems actually, not subsystems. And so in this particular case, as I explained earlier, we have a notable event system inside CockroachDB, and then later we have a network log collector that is interested to get some information out of CockroachDB. And so we are working here on a project to interface the two. And so what I think is happening is that this is stimulating my interest in compilers. And I will say it's not completely obvious, because it's not the case that we have programming languages on both sides and that we need to map semantics in a way that is that requires recursive algorithms or code generation and things like that. So why would this stimulate my interest in compilers? Well, what I think is happening is that I have evolved my interest for compilers over the years towards languages that are stream-oriented, where the programs, or like the program-like input, is not finite within a file that has a fixed size, and where, for example, the compilation step is just one step. What I think is happening is that over the years, I'm getting into more and more languages that are stream-oriented, where the instructions to be provided to the program processor are happening on the continuous input, either over the network or maybe with interactive input. And so as this, in this kind of language or programming environment, the algorithms that are needed to make compilers happen are actually kind of different. And they are different in ways that are not exactly well researched and well studied. And they also need new abstractions. And all this is very new and very fresh, if you will. And it is exciting, I would admit. And so that's is incidentally very likely the reason why I have developed over the year a fond interest for working with interpreters, where you have a program that reads input interactively from a user and then translates it to do something with it. In the case of CockroachDB, for example, there is a SQL shell, and I have spent a lot of time trying to improve that tool over the years, because well, it's probably stimulating in a similar way. And so here we are looking at logging, and it is harping on the same strings, and that might be just enjoyable. So not super deeply challenging intellectually, but it is still calling for attention, because all these individual subsystems inside CockroachDB do not know anything about external log consumption. And they are usually made by people who were just told, well, you should call this function from the logging system to send data out. And there is minimal testing around them. So it's not like people working on creating the events actually care about what's going to happen with them. And conversely, it's people who are consuming those events don't really know where they're coming from and what kind of work has been done to produce them. And so we have here now a project to work at the intersection, at the interface between the two. And that means trying to connect the dots between two kinds of people and engineers who don't necessarily talk to each other otherwise. And so maybe that's really where the challenge is. And so when looking at the code, it's not that obvious that everything I just said makes sense, because the code itself actually is pretty localized and doesn't really call for discussion. But nevertheless, I think it's interesting. So that's that. So 15 minutes of rambling around to explain what's going on here, not only just what's going on, but also why I think I care. Whether that explanation will continue to make sense, I need to continue thinking about that. It might not be actually the right theory, but we'll see. For the time being, I will work with that today. So, where were we? Now, earlier before the stream, I sent a PR around, this one, 57890, to include the SQL tenant ID into log file headers. And that reminds me that we also need to add, modify the JSON output to inject the node ID and tenant ID and SQL instance ID as separate discrete fields. So we can, in our JSON output, rely on the logging system to populate comment fields that are going to be shared by all the logging events, so that the callers of the logging API don't have to provide them over and over again. Also, will reduce mistakes, because if someone forgets, this way we're still guaranteed to have this data. Yeah, so another thing, as I discuss things and explain them, it is often the case that I also sense that there is opportunity for adding more and more steps to a to-do list. And so sometimes that's what happens. A few steps at the beginning of a working day will become a lot of steps, and maybe they won't fit anymore in the working day. That's actually pretty common. And so when that happens, I will go to my coworkers and say, well, what do you need? What is the most important things that I should be doing next? And then maybe the other things will be moved to the long tail. Or the other way around, actually. Sometimes long tail items come back into the middle. We'll see. Anyway, so we are going to work through this list. So there is a PR from a little while ago that is introducing logging channels that weren't there before. And that PR is totally acceptable. It's currently in review. It's not reviewed yet, but it could be. And we are going to extend this PR. I probably need to rebase it to fix some merge conflict, but extend this PR so that some interesting structured details about our notable events are sent to those new channels. So let's do that. So first of all, we need a fresh copy of the master branch, because if there's a conflict, probably we need to know that from the master branch. All right. Then we take our old branch, which is from a little while ago. I probably need to stash my soon change, and then we can rebase. Let's see if there was some divergence with its prefix. Oh. I was not expecting this. So this seems to be something prefixed on the fluent PR. So that doesn't seem right. What is special about this PR that it needs to be based on the one doing fluent things? Maybe we can do it separately. Let's see. Yeah, this PR has nothing to do with JSON. And so, because it has nothing to do with JSON, we are going to rebase it out of the Fluent integration. Let's do that. All right. Okay, some conflict. We can deal with that. As I'm writing this, for some reason, I have the voice of the speaker on the YouTube channel, the Lockpicking Lawyer. So for people who watch YouTube on a regular basis, that might be actually something they know already, because it's a pretty famous channel. People who don't know, that's someone who has a channel where they pick locks interactively, and they do that for more or less any kind of locks they can put them hands on, including things that people send them. And so the person doing this has a pretty recognizable voice, but also very interestingly, they have certain phrases that they will say on every episode. And now this is something that has become kind of a shibboleth, a symbol of people who know that channel. And what's remarkable is that whenever I'm working on a PR and I do a rebase and I see a conflict, I have this voice in my head from the Lockpicking Lawyer. Well, we have a clicking on 4. 1 is binding, things like this. Anyway, it's very enjoyable. So the idea being, the reason why it comes up is because rebase always mean conflict, and then the way to deal with the conflict is always more or less the same. Look at what the conflict is, and then just introduce the equivalent change in the original one. And that is such a mechanical change that I wish it could be automated. All right, so this seems like a bigger conflict, but the truth is, it's not. It's just not. Is that? Oh, except it's not ops is hell. All right. Let's build this, because it's possible that the generated documentation will change as a result. I did it. It doesn't like it. That's great. So let's finish this rebase and verify that the information in the release node seems correct. Logging events that are relevant to cluster operators are not categorized until the new ops and health logging channels, separately from logging events. Yes. Crashes. Node additions, removals, decommissions, etc. Job-related initiation, termination. Is it so? Is there something about jobs? Well, not yet, huh? So we're going to remove that. Cluster setting changes? Not yet. This has not yet been made true, but we are going to make it true in a second. The health channel is a channel used to report background operational events. No, that has been done. Up and down replication, range and availability, has it? That might not be the case yet. We'll see, but it's not too bad. Let's continue with this. All right. Now, this rebase is successful, and we are going to do what this says here, which is to assign cluster events to the ops channel. So it is done. Okay, now I need to explain this a little bit. By changing this comment here, I'm changing really the input to a code generator. And so we have some kind of program transformations that will analyze these comments in this file and do things with it. So this file is actually a protobuf input file that gives us some definition, or structure definition for things that we are interested in. And then there's some documentation and so on. And so this file is being processed by different tools. Now, what we did in a previous PR is create a documentation generator that extracts all the comments and generates a reference documentation for all the notable events. So we have this generated file here with all the possible event types that can happen in notable events and their fields and what they mean and so on. And all this is automatically generated from these comments. And for example, if you look at this file, which I closed mistakenly, and I go to node decommissioned, we see here that the channel to which those events are logged is also reported automatically in the documentation that is being generated. And then separately from this, also the code generator creates a mapping from structured events to channels. And what we see here, what has changed, is that the node events were previously in the dev channel and now are in the ops channel. What that means is that the logging system will automatically recognize them as now being a target, a candidate for the ops channel. And so they will just be sent there automatically without me having to implement anything else. Yay to code generation. So, well, that has done the trick. We are going to save those changes and amend this, and then say, okay, operator, on process start, stop, shut down crashes. So crashes have not yet been logged, have they? Maybe they have actually. Let's see. Let's see. Am I understanding that fatal errors are being served? Fatal? Right. Right. Okay, so make entry. All right, so fatal calls are not sent to the ops channel. Maybe they should be, right? Maybe we should have a an event here. That will need a test, right? If the channel is not channel.ops, so we are going to do log f depth plus 1, and it's not going to be the same severity. We are going to say severity.info and then channel.ops. Then say the server is terminating due to a fatal error. See, say channel for details, and then the channel is this one. So what's going on here? We want to ensure that if the message would not be visible in the ops channel, which is going to be monitored by cluster monitoring tools, we are going to copy it there. So in this way, we maximize the chance that the cluster operator who is monitoring the ops channel will know that the server is terminating due to a fatal error. Otherwise, they will just see the event stream terminating, and they will know why exactly. It's not declared by package channel. Well, not yet, just because the checker has not realized that we have generated new code. It's okay. We don't mind that. Let's try it out. How do I test this out? We have a fatal function in SQL to generate fatal errors, and it does not use the ops channel. And so because of that, I'm expecting it to send Yeah, so, okay, I have an hesitation. So I'm going to explain my hesitation in a second. I'm making a mental note of it, but nevertheless, let's try it. All right. All right. Yeah. Oh, come on. Force fatal. Force log fatal. I don't remember how it's called. Oh, insufficient privilege. Oh, I like that. Okay, that is cool. All right. Let's. So we have. I'm going to stop this server. To stop this server. Oh, actually, it's not too bad. SQL. Insecure. And this one, I want to load to studio. Come on. Thank you. Thank you. There we go. It's dead. And the server is terminating due to a fatal error. See the dev channel for details. So I'm going to say this and try this. I hope this will be okay. So why I need to rebuild this, because this log message here has included the channel name within redaction markers, and I don't really want the redaction markers. There's nothing unsafe about the channel name. So wait, did it finish building? No, not yet. All right, now it's finished. Let's start again. Then do the same thing, and then look at what happened. Oh. Yeah, I know what's going on. We are going to annotate, say, type of a channel. This might be actually a separate unit of behavior. So we are going to keep, say, this one. And then we're going to commit those changes here as a separate change. All right, did you see how this go? Yay, look at this. So we see here, this is reported in the ops channel, number 1. And because the fatal call went to the dev channel. That seems all right. That seems all right. Cool. All right. So we are going to add a separate commit for this. Also report on the ops channel And this is a release note. Is it CLI change or is it, I don't remember the categories. CLI change, API change, UI security, general change. Sounds like CLI change. Let's say CLI change. We probably need a separate category for all the server related stuff actually. CLI really sounds like the client commands, and it's actually a server thing. But everything that's network related we put in CLI change for the time being. I don't know. Nah. Let's say. Server terminations that are caused by internal, that are triggered when a node encounters an internal fatal error, are node reported on the ops channel. The exact text of the error is not reported on the ops channel. However, as it may be complex when there is arithmetic inconsistency, and the ops channel is typically monitored by tools that just detect irregularities. Text refers instead, the text of the message, to the channel where the additional details can be found. I've noticed that I write lately a lot by phrasing out verbally what I am working on. All right. So that is not true anymore. And this release note is not adequate. These two commits introduce the ops and health channel. See the individual commits for details. Is the reviewer subscribed? No. Okay, so I have rebased this of master so as to not make it dependent on this one. Hopefully this makes it easier to review. Can you have a look? Thanks. All right. Now, there is something that I just noticed. Well, two things I just noticed. That well, three things. But let's keep it. So we have this function log f here, and that's where we added this code a second ago. There is a concern here, and that is that when there is a slow disk, we fail the server, saying that the disk is not healthy. Where was that? Where was that? File.go, maybe? It has to do something with timeouts, this one here. Right. So, if there is a disk stall, we shout. And the shout is the log call, effectively. And that won't do, because if the disk is slow, this call will end up here, then the channel will be not ops, And then we will see syscall on the ops channel, but because the disk is slow, then this is not going to work. And then we're going to arrive here and then have this again. And then we are going to ping pong between the two functions, which is not great. And so we solve this by ensuring that disk slowness is reported on the ops channel. This way there won't be any conflict. Let's actually also realign our expectation with regard to the testing that is happening in that package. Seems all right. And this one, yeah, if works better if I do it this way. Cool. It is important to log this on the ops channel to avoid a recursive back and forth between the copy of fatal events to ops and disk slowness detection. Here. See the implementation log details. See the comments above about why we use the host here. It's important to have comments that remind the reader of the code later of why the decisions were taken. All right. Cool. That is done. No. Yes. Cluster events. Except that, no, it is not done actually, because I forgot something. If we look at, that's the other thing I want to say. So this says we also want zone configuration changes to go to the ops channel, and they did not. So we need to do that still. Cluster events. And we have the DDL events here with the zone config changes, and that is not right because zone config changes are kind of really operational events, also kind of DDL events. It's kind of tricky. We're going to consider them as a separate thing. Then to zone config changes perform basic statements on the SQL schema or system ranges. When zone configs apply to individual tables or other objects in SQL in a SQL logical schema, they are relative to a particular tenant. When they apply to cluster level ranges, for example, the system zone config, they are stored in the system tenant's own system.event log table. And so that's a comment that is going to be in the documentation, and then we can have a separate comment here that says explore whether we should have separate notable event types for table level and cluster level zone config changes. So that needs to be filed as an issue, actually. But it's not an issue we're going to solve today. So we just need to file it and refer to it. Zone config changes. Level and cluster level zone configs are conflated. Okay. Today we use the same notable event types. What's it called? Oh. Zone config. It goes out of this file and it goes into this file. So everything else in this file removed. Set config, remote zone config. To report zone config changes on either table, partition, DB objects, and also cluster level objects like the system and meta zone configs. This does not seem right, as we likely want them to be filterable separately. Also, from a UX perspective, it is a little bit confusing, as they will be sent to either, say, system tenants, system.event-log table, or the individual tenants, depending on the object whose zone is being configured. There is a separate question of whether, additionally, the question remains of how much zone configs should remain a SQL DDL zone config changes operations that individual there is some research to be done, and the person that is going to help with these zone config changes is probably going to be this person. Investigation, enhancement, zone configs, and logging. And we are going to put this in server, and then multi. We have multi-region projects somewhere. I just don't remember exactly where. Here, there we go. And then experience, this one, there we go. And now we can refer to this in the code here. All right. So this is ops, and this is not. Now we have successfully put these on config changes in a separate file. There is a little bit of plugging things together here. Otherwise, the code generator doesn't see them, and all this is not automated yet. Like, we still have to modify Makefile, but that's okay. Cool. So this one goes in, and this one we'll see the zone config inside the ops channel. It's exactly what we wanted. And these have been removed, and so we are all okay. And so not that okay, we should be looking at a completely different PR. What am I doing? Master. It's important to separate projects, right? So we want, oh no, wait, we are still in the same PR. We just want a separate commit on top of the existing one. Yes, okay, let's do this. Zone config changes towards the ops channel. Zone config changes interest the DBAs as a cluster as a whole more than say interests the individual. The DBA of the individual SQL application. Alright, so and we are going to say API change. Maybe it's the CLI change, I don't know. This is really something where I would argue we want to have a separate, well, maybe, you know what? This is actually something I'm going to find as an issue. I don't know if it should be a documentation bug or a CRDB bug, but it's okay. I will file it here. New release note category for operational changes. Today we have a bunch of changes that affect the life of system operators or DBAs responsible for orchestration, etc. Today, the release note categories do not offer a way to target that audience specifically. We only have, and so I'm going to copy paste things that are happening here. For the HTTP APIs, for the client commands, arguably the command line. And what is the other one we have? Security. Interests, say security auditors, and oopsie, and then that's pretty much what we have. That's all. None of these are particularly suitable for changes like new behavior of network listeners, new ways that data gets logged, new contents for messages, or perhaps constraints on how servers accept to connect. Be tempted to introduce new category for this purpose. Right. There we go. Filing issues when something don't feel right is pretty much important. Anyway, so the event, the notable events set zone config and move zone config are now sent to the ops channel. Off we go. Cool. There we go. Assign cluster events to the ops channel. So that has been achieved. Rework this PR to assign DDL and privilege events to the appropriate channels. Yes, we can do this now. This now has been made possible. This was a draft PR, and it wasn't exactly satisfying because at the time this was written, there was no real good facility to capture the data sent to the system.event log table. But that is what this entire project was about, and now we have made all these steps. Now it has become completely realistic to do this. So we can take this PR, rebase it, except for the last commit, and then make that channel happen. And we are going to do that by just changing probably one line of comment at the start of a proto file, and then the code generator will take care of the rest. It's going to be so nice and easy. However, I see it has been 1 hour, and it's never healthy to be in front of the computer for more than 1 hour at a time. And so now is time for a break. And so I invite people to go and hydrate and maybe stretch their legs a little bit. I will do the same, and it will cost at least 5 minutes, maybe a bit more. So let's resume at maybe 35. So that's going to be 5 past half hour in something like 7 minutes. See you all in a minute. And we are back on. I put a hat on because I don't have hair. And also I'm trying to save some energy by not putting too much heating during the day. And so I also received swag today. So, okay, I need to show this. So Cockroach Labs has sent me some goodies. And so I have this hat now with a CockroachDB logo. It's more than a beanie because I have a pom-pom at the top. But I will wear this today to cover my hairless head and try to provide some warmth. We'll see. With the headset on, it looks grungy. Oh well. Oh well. Anyway, so we can resume and connect those things that we were looking at together. Thanks, that nerd. Nice divider background. Oh, okay, I need to talk about that because it's kind of cool. So, number one, a lot of my coworkers have done this. So, the reason why folk have added what is called a room screen behind their chair is very often because they don't want the people who they're talking to online to see their personal space. A lot of folk, at least in the US, have very small houses or very small apartments. And so the working space is shared with the living space. And so in order to maintain some privacy, it's meaningful to have a screen that is going to serve as space divider. The technical word is screen, by the way. It's the screen in the very old-fashioned sense of the word, where people would screen themselves out of being seen by their family when they're changing, for example. But I've also started seeing coworkers looking at putting screens behind their office as a way to not only give themselves privacy, but also to separate visually their space, workspace from living space, so that when they're not working, they don't have to look at them, which is very good for mental health. And then all this for me is not really applicable because I have a separate space for work anyway. Now, the real thing is that I have lighting problems. It's started to become dark 2-3 weeks ago. I've noticed that the night was falling during the stream, and that the camera on my face was not capturing me properly anymore. And the problem is that I don't have good overhead lights generally, and the wall behind is pretty far. And so what was happening when I had the overhead light on is that the camera would focus its lighting adjustment on the wall behind me, and then my face would still be dark, and it didn't work out. And so I added the screen, which I also enjoy because it looks nice, but primarily as a way to manage my lighting when it's dark outside and I don't have indirect light from the sunlight. A young Sikuno. I must confess my ignorance. Can you explain what a young Sikuno is? So, anyway, I should really get started with this PR. Also needs a rebase, also probably needs to be split away from the other things we're doing, and there will be merge conflicts, and all this is fine. Everything is fine. So here's a popular streamer who has a similar background screen. Hey! I hope that I'm not stealing anyone's design or idea by doing this. So I also want to say, when I got this screen, I thought that I will need different screens depending on my mood or the mood I wanted to convey in front of a camera. Given that I actually want to start producing some videos on different topics and maybe topics that are a bit more serious. This is really lighthearted, and so I got two screens. So there's one we don't see here, but this is actually a very nice one with an abstract design, and it's so pretty, and pretty sure that one is unique and it's not taken by anyone. Mine is more decorative and nice. Oh, thank you for the compliment. And now I'm thinking about this compliment, I'm getting distracted. I need to get on with this PR. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. 2 channels. And so there were a lot of other things, and then we can rebase this. Okay, some conflicts. I can accept that. What does it see? Yes, that is correct. Since I'm defining them, I'm expecting conflict here. Is that all? Yeah, so this reserved one is from the other PR, but we're making 2 separate independent PRs, that's why. Let's try to build this. Fingers crossed that it's okay. Seems all right. Let's see. Continue this rebase. So it's not a certain, okay, so notable events that pertain to SQL user and privilege administration changes are now sent, right? And then it has the object ownership. We need to look at this. Okay. Except that this PR is not actually doing this yet. What is it actually doing? So it did change this to have a different documentation. It changed the channel definition, and that's all what it does. It actually didn't change anything about the events. That seems a little bit silly. Privilege changes. DDL events are going to go to not here. We're probably missing a channel for DDL, aren't we? Aren't we? There is none for DDL yet. We probably need one. Good that we're talking about this today, aren't we? Huh? Okay. Okay, so we have, we don't have role changes here, but we do have owner changes, all of them. So this should go to the privilege events. So this one goes to the privileges channel now. As I explained earlier, we don't need to do anything else. Just changing this comment will make sure it works. And then we also want, say, owner changes to go in the privilege channel. I don't see alter table owner. I am vaguely expecting that the alter table owner hasn't been implemented yet. Ooh, that is a problem. That is a problem, and we need to solve it. We are going to solve it in a separate commit though. Let's verify this assertion first. So create user foo, create table, alter table, set owner to foo. Alter table bar set owner to set owner to foo. Okay, grant create to foo on database default DB. Yeah, this statement should really accept arguments in every order. Anyway, like this. Do we get it? Change database privilege, that's okay. Alter table. The owner change was not logged. Ah, that is a bug. We are going to file it. Our PR might fix the bug at the same time, but we still need to file it. Let's go there. Notable missing for alter table owner 2. Ownership changes to databases, schema, and types are currently properly logged with different event types. However, table view sequence ownership changes are not logged at all. This is missing. This is important to have a full security log for triage. PR, and then I can announce this change already. Might contain if it's for this. SQL experience, isn't it? Schema, I suppose. Schema. And it is a bug. Schema changes and logging. Thank you. And so now here I can have a to-do. Cool. So privilege events go here. And then we have local changes goes to dev channel, which is not great. We actually want a different channel for DDL. I did not foresee this when the first version of this PR, and we absolutely need to do this now. But before we go there, we also just created a user admin thing, and we have a role events thing already. So we can just do this, and hopefully everything comes together. You know what? This hat is actually much too warm for my taste. It's pretty, but it's too warm. The thing is, the headset already warms my ears suitably, so I don't feel that I should be warmer. Okay, we're going to try it out. So the reason why I'm not spending excessive amount of time testing these one-line comment changes in here is because we have a separate testing facility that verifies that events in a file are logged to the channels that are announced in their file. So we actually don't really need to write these tests one by one anymore. Code generation is just so great, so great, so great. Anyway, let's go there. You know what? I'm going to use a new logging configuration. And so the way we do this is that I want to have things stdr, and then I'm going to say channels user admin privileges filter info. Oh. What do we see? Seems to work. Seems to work. So create user foo. There we go. Alter database, alter database default DB owner to foo on this other event. We got it. We got some. I'm getting some. How to say? Chicken skin? No. Chicken fell. Goosebumps. Goosebumps. In Europe we say chicken, and apparently in the US it's geese. Whatever. All right. So we have DDL events, and it's not going to dev channel. It needs to go to DDL channel very probably. So let's add a channel for this. So what do we have here? We have storage, sessions, user admin, blah, blah, sensitive access, SQL exec, SQL perf, SQL internal perf. You know what? Nothing has yet. How do I feel about that? Yeah, all this logging infrastructure has not been released in any public version of CockroachDB yet. So actually I can renumber so that they fit a little bit better together. So user administration privileges are arguably part of DDL, but it's a separate kind of DDL. So if I use a word DDL for the new channel, it's going to be slightly confusing about the overlap with privileges. Do we have maybe a better way to distinguish? I really want to say schema. I want a word that says when this layout of the SQL meta schema is it's going to be SQL schema. Is a channel used to report changes to the SQL logical excluding privilege and ownership changes which are reported on the separate channel privileges. All right, let's remember all these people, all these entries here. This is not really the way that protobuf should work, and this renumbering I'm currently typing in is actually a big no-no if that code had been released publicly. So we don't really store these protobuf values anywhere inside a database. So binary conversion compatibility is not a big deal. However, the numeric values are used inside the log files to identify the channels. And so if there was a release version of CockroachDB and people had started to accumulate log files, then changing those numbers here would mistakenly reassign logging events already written to files to different channels. And so that wouldn't be great. But again, all this facility has not yet been published, and therefore I'm relatively comfortable with this. database, schema, table, type creation, sequence, view, type creation, adding, removing, changing table columns, and zone config changes. Changing sequence parameters. More generally, changes that affect functional behavior of client using stored. All right. And so we change this one line, and then automatically all the events go to the right place. This is great. This is great. And those changes here, I will just assume are okay to keep on this channel. Sometime in the future, I predict some customer will come to us and say, I want more fine-grained events in the SQL schema channel. Because right now, any kind of change on the table or whatever is going to be a single type of event. And so it's not possible to distinguish, for example, adding or removing a column to a table easily or changing the type of a column. And so users are going to ask, very likely. But once we have the infrastructure to do this, it's going to be much easier to add event types. So what do we see? Look at all these events that are now being, so we said add the SQL schema to the output on SDR, and now we see all these things happening. So alter database system configure zone. Oh, that is set zone config. Yeah, so I have this other PR that moves the zone config changer to the ops channel, but that's a separate PR, so that change is not here. So I'm still seeing those config changes right now. That's okay. I do see the create database, which is what I wanted. And then I can say create table T, and then I see my structured event. This is nice. This is nice. It's nice. All right. And my generated documentation is updated. Some of the fields are moved to a different section. This is great. Then we have this this list of channels, and then we have all those things here. Then says, and this file here is likely now going to be. This is so great. This is so great. SQL schema is here now. That is cool. All right, let's amend this commit. SQL user admin and this. And copy paste this one here. Channel is used. Moves as and access. 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 because I'm changing the list of channels, it's possible that the log config test needs to be adapted. Yeah, look at this. Wait. Oh, I did not stage my changes a second ago. That's why. That is why. All right, so this data has changed here. We have now different channel names. That's okay. And that means that possibly the log thing here needs to be changed as well. It hasn't. And then CLI. See you later, that nerd. Thanks for being here. Yep. It's also confused. Cool. Yep, that works for me. And so amend this, and this, and this, and then push, and then take this, and then change this, and then change this. And then take the diff, the commit message from GitHub has not yet picked up my diff. It has now. Cool. Come on. Oh, I forgot to modify the release note. Silly me. That pertain to schema user and privilege changes to the new Skickle schema. There we go. Right. That seems right. And now I can take this text and put it back here. And then this. And then ready for review. Rebased this on top of master, which greatly simplifies the review. This is ready for another look. Okay. This is done. This is done. I noticed that I had to update a test. That means that this here is probably failing because I did not update the test properly. So let's go and check why it's failing. I think I know what needs to be done. Oh, and just the one we just did also has a problem. We need to update the Bazel input files. Because we are adding files, we're changing some, right? Oh, no. Okay, this one is fine. All right, why is this failing? Oh, because I did not regenerate, or I probably did not commit the change to the generated documentation file. All right, we need to fix that. Cool. Yeah, okay, so this needs to be committed, and this needs to be committed as well. Zone config events, all right. These are the two files I modified last. Cool. Cool. So that will fix that linting issue. I can ignore this. Alrighty. I feel so excited. This is now okay. Now we have those JSONs, this little package of JSON issues, but I also see we have a maximum of, well, half an hour left, and that's certainly not enough to do this work on stream. And it would be silly to start something and then not finish it, right? So the way we're going to do this is jump to the RFC and change the RFC text, which is a separate kind of activity and probably going to be a nice closing thought for this, this session. And I might be even bold a little bit and add a preview of what we are going to do afterwards in the RFC, so that we clarify thoughts and prepare for the work ahead. So next step is a bit of writing and prose. So people who are here just for code can probably feel free to disconnect. And then people who are also interested in how we are thinking about writing up what we do, they can look at this. So there is some work needed on this RFC. I did rewrite a big part of it, but something I did not do last time I looked at it was to review whether all the changes we've performed so far have solved the linked issues. So what are the linked issues about here? So my web browser is supposed to give me a preview when I hover on link. Oh, it doesn't, whatever. Let's go. Simplifies the configuration of logging. This has been achieved. This has completely been achieved already. This change has been merged even already. Woo! All right, so how did that go? We had a change. I just don't remember how it's called. There was a PR already mentioned in this RFC somewhere. Where is this? Where is this PR? MVP. Oh, come on. All right. I must have written this somewhere. So reference detailed. There we go. New configuration system. So that's the one I wanted here, because now I can say fixed by this. There we go. So that's a part of the RFC work. And that is when we iterate on RFC, for example, to update it back up to date with the current implementation, it's better to verify the cross-references. So that is done. Implement a flag that outputs all log messages as structured JSON. So that one is fixed by this one. No? Yes. And this is not true. And this fixes this. Yes, this is what that PR is doing. It's going to be so great. Jordan is going to be so happy. Not say too much. Cockroach log tool or ability to let grades, that has been solved. Absolutely. That has totally been solved by this one. Cool. Okay. Okay. So we have an RFC with links at the top with 3 linked issues, which, if I'm not mistaken, are now closed, except for the one about structured logging. And that is great because it's going to be closed by the peers that's already open. So, all right, so let's look at this RFC a little bit to see what needs to be changed. So something in the last edit of this RFC that was removed is all the discussion around the event log, because back then, that was a couple of weeks ago, I thought that we would not have time or bandwidth to do event log refactorers, and that was completely mistaken, because the moment I started to float that idea, we're not going to do this, people came out of the woodwork and said, super important, needs to happen. So it actually happened in the last few weeks. So now the RFC can talk about it and explain it. Explanation is important because that's what people will use later to write the documentation about it. So we need it. Let's see. So we have motivations, guide level explanations, and then we have configuration with general things, and then just best practices. And that's something that is currently missing, and that's a discussion, sorry, in these best practices of how we want to do, how we want to recommend people deploy this. And so we need to update all this. Let's see. Health monitoring, security, network unstructured logging, logging configuration. Okay. So each logging event is a written channel, analogous to blah, blah, blah. What is the same? Okay. And then what is different? And that are those things here. And so a list of logging channels. That's where we need to add those channels we have changed. This is untrue. This is not true yet. No, it's not true actually. So there is an issue filed about this now, which I filed recently. Where would that be? I don't remember, but I know how to find it. This one. Restores and imports. Okay. Health, storage, sessions. And the new one comes here. Schema. Those schema changes. Come on. Let's copy paste this text from here. This. User admin privileges. Sensitive access has not been done yet. That has not been done yet. I think. Actually, it has been, but we need to file a step here. Make add more structure for the events for table audit. Add a new sort of SQL query logging for all statements performed by admin users. That's mentioned in the RFC actually. We probably need to file issues for those two, but it needs to be thought about a little bit more. These are fine. And then we have SQL perf internal. All right. For the sake of completion, for internal. Okay. Configuration is not changed. All this is the same. The default configuration though is changing, and that needs to be updated. Oh, it's going to be a nuisance, isn't it? You can't copy paste things with those backticks, those backspaces. I can hear. Okay. Okay. Let's remove this part. The URL. Oh, I need to put UML here. And then this, and then this, this, and then PNG here. Copy paste, copy paste. Yes. So just the best practices, and that is where we're going to add the meat of our recommendations. Default for the dir parameter for file things is the logs directory. This is in zero cloud deployments. Where's meant? Okay. 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 Okay, so there is here we need two subsections here. So why do my hyperlinks in the RC text don't work here? Because I really want them to work. That really makes navigations easier. So I have here a text which says suggested best practices. Oh, it's of course, because it's not example, it's suggested. All right, so does that link? Yes. Does that link? Yes, it does. Does that link? Yes, it does. Yeah. Configuration sync parameters doesn't. Let's see why. What is different? errors because there is an additional hyphen. All right. Let's go. Let's go. All right, and then here we are going to have general best practices, Cockroach Cloud. I hate Markdown. All this table of content maintenance should really be automated completely. Oh well. And then we have here for Cockroach Cloud, we really have three fundamental use cases. We need logging output when troubleshooting cluster misbehavior or outages. And so the we here is CRL support. We need security logs to detect malicious access attempts and other suspicious security adjacent behavior by means of an IDS with automatic behavior modeling. This security log needs to monitor at least user role administration, connection and authentication at times. Okay, and then CC end users want the ability to access their own logs to troubleshoot SQL query performance and audit their TTL, etc. So let's number those use cases. To achieve all three goals at acceptable cost, we propose a following architecture. CockroachDB, nodes inside CC clusters are configured to route all their logging to a fluently compatible collector. The collector needs to run locally in each region, preferably inside the same cluster, to ensure that the latency of network logging remains low and to prevent potential attacks on the logging stream in transit. Confidentiality. All right. At the network collector, we then configure the logging to be routed as follows. In addition, we're going to see that in a second. So additionally, for the time being, we will also preserve the ability of every CC node to copy their logging events to a file stored locally. This is needed for backward compatibility with debug zip until this issue is addressed. And the issue in question is something about debug. This one. All right. A copy of the sessions, the cluster settings, servered osmog SQL enabled must be set explicitly on every CC cluster to force the emission of those events. However, we need to be careful that the sessions channel is only logged to the network, not to disk, because it produces a lot of events and this would consume disk IOs excessively. There we go. Sessions and then user admin and privileges to be sent to the IDS as a stream. Copy of all channels except dev to be okay, to be sent to storage buckets on which the CC and user has read-only permission, so they can download their own logs, each channel stored to a different file. Except, well, actually, I don't like this. All channels except. And so we're going to do it more explicitly, actually. Let's say sessions, user admin. Well, we'll see sessions, sessions, user admin, privileges, SQL schema. What else? We don't want storage. Probably don't want health. Sensitive access. SQL exec, SQL perf. Okay, that is a bit of an issue, actually. We need to be careful about this. We need to go. So there is an issue. There is an issue to be filed here. That's actually a tricky one. Separate SQL query logging for admin users from that of regular users. Actually, CC. For CC, we want to give access to their own logs to users, including their query logs, so they can troubleshoot their own performance and error. However, today the SQL query log contain statements issued by the CC platform intrusion. including possibly backup statements and other CC sensitive show credential to alleviate this. We need CC issued events to be sent either to a different channel or be entirely filtered. All right. Goes here, goes here. Then needs to be mentioned RFC. Note that we need to care that CC sensitive does not get copied to user logs. See this issue. Cool. And then a copy of the ops and health channel to be sent to the SUSE monitoring platform to detect cluster outages. All right. Cool. So now we have this diagram, then this, then we have detailed design, and then all this here is the same. So here we are. We have updated the SRFC to mention the new channels. So there we go. And so we push this. No. And now the RC will have an updated mention of the SQL schema channel. Does it? Yes, there we go. Cool. We updated the RFC, and there is now also a best practice for Cockroach Cloud logging use cases. That is the new stuff that we need to know. So this is done. Well, that does it. I think that we have achieved a lot today. A couple of PRs, all this align with our to-do list. Updating the RFC is now achieved. Oops, sorry about that. And so next time, either we do those documenting steps or they will be done already. So that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for being here and accompanying this journey. And we will see each other again next week. See you.